Hi everyone, my name is Molly McCarthy-Cunfer and I work for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game Division of Sportfish. I'm really excited about this fishing forum called Cooking Your Catch. I'll be teaching you a few different cooking techniques for your fish and shellfish that you either have in your freezer from a very successful season of fishing, that you are going to buy from the grocery store because all of these different recipes sound really good and you want to try a bunch, or you're just here to learn some different cooking techniques and have no intention of eating seafood. Whatever it is, I'm happy to have you here. So here's what we'll talk through in today's presentation. First, we'll cover caring for fish and shellfish in the field. I hope that some of you watching this are planning on getting out and fishing and trying to fill your freezer up. So we'll talk about that because no matter what kind of seasoning you put on something, if you don't take care of it in the field and it spoils, well, you're out of luck there. The next thing we'll talk about is just a few cooking tips and materials, a couple things that you might want to have in your kitchen. And then we'll go through cooking techniques and recipes. So I'm not going to be running a cooking show and showing you how to make one thing. I'm just going to shotgun approach, tell you a bunch of different things I like and recipes that I like to cook on a regular basis, and you can take them or leave them, but hopefully they will at least spark some creativity in your own kitchen. So first we'll talk about caring for your catch in the field, and this is for fish. So the different species that I'll cover are things that you would get with your Alaska sport fishing license. So if you catch a fish in the field, the first thing to do to dispatch it is to dispatch it as soon as possible. And that is usually done with a swift bonk to the head. So there's a video of my friend bonking a king salmon in the head that she caught. The next thing that you want to do is gill or bleed the fish. So in this photo, you can see we have cut all the gills of those fish, and that stringer was in the water. So those fish were bleeding out in the water. Keep the fish cold. So if you can keep them in the water wherever you're fishing, that's a great option if the water is clean. If the water is not clean, you're better off to put the fish in a cooler on ice and keep it cool there. Just be mindful that fish aren't meant to just sit out in the sun and bake on a river bank. So try to have a nice cold spot for them to go, because bacteria can grow pretty rapidly, especially in warm conditions. If you're on ice fishing, no problem there. Just throw them on the ice and make sure an eagle doesn't get them. The next thing, obviously filleting your fish and processing it. So here's a video. We caught a halibut in our raft and took out the floor of the raft and filleted our fish right there on the beach, and then threw the fillets in the cooler. And then finally, process your fish, which means putting it in the fridge to consume within a couple of days, canning it, or vacuum sealing and freezing it. So that's how to care for your fish catch. Next, another fun species that we can go after is clams in Alaska. Here's a fun video of just digging for clams. If you haven't gone out digging for razor clams, it is a blast. This video is from across Cook Inlet over on West Cook Inlet, and there's some pretty big razor clams over there. So while you're digging for clams, usually you're just putting your clams in a bucket while you're digging, and you're doing this on a very low tide. So you're only out there for 3 to 4 hours before the tide comes in and you have to get off the beach. So once you're done digging, rinse the sand off of your clams. And then when you get back, and I'm talking about getting back because a lot of folks go out on a fishing charter boat to do this, or fly across the inlet, or go out on their own boat. So they're going over, they're digging, and then they're coming back to somewhere else to process their clams. So when you get back, if it's a short amount of time, the next thing you should do is remove the clams from the shell. And so this video shows if you boil some water and put them in for about 5 to 10 seconds, you can see she's going to pull and make sure the clam's easy to come off the shell. If it is, it's going in a bucket of cool water. And then the other person in the video is actively removing the razor clam from the shell. The final thing is removing the entrails and cutting it into preferred pieces for processing. So this part, the siphon gets cut off. That's the toughest part of the clam. So that's really good to put into chowders and can for things like that. Here we are, we've got it just getting pulled apart. So any sandy, gritty bits that you really don't want to put in your mouth. You're just trying to actively pull that out. So you can see here's a cleaned up razor clam. Some of those parts are great for frying, fritters, all of that stuff. And then the tougher parts are really good to can. The biggest thing is removing it from the shell. Once that's done, you can really leave them like that for a couple of days in the fridge. But the best bet is to just clean them up, get them cut up into whatever parts you want, and then either eat them. They're absolutely delicious. Or process them, canning, freezing, whatever you're going to do with them. Next, we'll talk about crabs. With your sport fishing license, you can go after tanner crab. So if you're out crabbing, the best thing to do is one, keep your crab alive in a bucket of salt water. It must remain whole until you're back to the dock. So you just keep it in your bucket of salt water. When you get back to the dock to clean it, you can break it in half and remove the carapace, gills, and guts. And then moving on to processing and cooking, steam the crab for 5 to 7 minutes. It's best eaten fresh, but people who do freeze them often will freeze them in a bag of salt water. And I think this is to kind of help with that structural integrity a little bit better. But I have not gone out crabbing or frozen any crab. This is just advice that I've heard from people who go out and do it. So if you do your crab differently, if you are someone who goes out and catches a bunch of crab and processes a lot, put a note in the comments and let folks know what you do. Okay, and finally, we'll talk about shrimp. Immediately after harvesting shrimp, you should put them in a bucket of salt water for at least 15 minutes. For the higher quality, best quality shrimp, keep replenishing that salt water often, and that will just allow those shrimp to purge out. When you get back to the dock, or when you've completed the saltwater process, remove the heads of the shrimp before putting them in the fridge or freezer, and then process those shrimp, again, freezing them or eating them right away. So those are the main species I'm going to talk about. There are other species that you can sport fish for in Alaska, but these are kind of the main meat and potatoes species we have here. So I'll quickly just talk about a few cooking tips for seafood. The biggest tip I have for you is to not overcook it. Shrimp can be cooked fully in less than a minute. Salmon, halibut, all of your fish cooks pretty quickly. So keep an eye on it so you don't overcook it. And I'll talk a little bit about what I do to make sure I'm not doing that. That is the first thing you can do to make someone not like the fish that you cook, is cook it too much. Don't over season it. If you want to taste the fish, you should not put a bunch of seasoning on it. You should let the natural flavors shine. Fresh Alaska seafood is some of the best tasting stuff in the world, in my opinion. So let people taste that. However, if you're trying to convince a non-seafood eater to like it, you may have to over season a little bit. But I have a few recipes that might help you with if there's someone in your household that's like that. The next thing, get creative, try new things. This is like the biggest thing I can tell you is the sky is the limit. Don't get nervous. If something doesn't taste good, just don't make it again. As I was thinking about recording this presentation, I was like, wow, my heritage really comes out in all of my recipes. I'm both Italian and Irish, so my cooking style is like a cross between root vegetables and carbohydrates. So I should think about, trying something different. So the last 2 nights, we decided to go completely rogue. We made shrimp pad thai, which was awesome. And then last night we made salmon ramen, and that was also really good. So just look up a random recipe online and give it a shot. Another fun thing that you can do to try new things is, if you're like us, the worst part of cooking dinner is figuring out what you're having for dinner. Text a friend and say, hey, I'm taking halibut out tonight. Can you send me a halibut recipe to cook? We did that for a couple days this summer. We didn't want to think about it. It led to some good cooking. So ask a friend. Tell them to pick your dinner for you. Another thing, if you're new to cooking fish, try to recipe match with things you are familiar cooking. So if you have a couple surefire chicken dishes that you really like to cook, try to replace chicken with halibut. You're going to cook the halibut for less time than chicken, but it's kind of a similar substitute. Smoked salmon is also a really good substitute for bacon in some recipes, such as soups. So just try to pair with similar flavors and use some of your go-to recipes. Some kitchen must-haves if you're going to be cooking seafood, cooking anything. I mean, if you're going to cook often, you should have these things in your kitchen. A good thermometer, that will help you, especially if you're going to be frying any fish. A deep pot for frying fish, steaming, making big batches of soup, whatever, you'll use it. Sharp knives, fillet knives, a shucking knife, and crab leg crackers if you anticipate eating crab. That would be a good thing to have. Otherwise, good tongs, mixing bowls, cutting boards, your basic kitchen things. So just make sure that you have, the very basics and you'll have no problem cooking seafood. Another couple little things that I like to have in my kitchen. One is tweezers. That way, if I have fish fillet with bones in it, I just have my kitchen tweezers that I can pluck the bones out easily. One of those little rubber brushes for putting on marinades. Those are really nice. You don't need one. You'll be fine without it. Okay, and before we dive into cooking, if you've ever eaten at an Alaskan's house or at any sportsman or woman's house, they've probably served you a meal of something that they caught or harvested, and then they told you all about it. And to me, one of the big lures of being an outdoors woman is that sharing food with people is a love language. I love cooking for people, and I love cooking food that I caught for people. It's a pride thing for me. And so if you've ever gone to someone's house that, went out salmon fishing or went out halibut fishing and caught that fish, you're probably going to hear all about their trip. It's like the new, I walked uphill both ways to school. This is like I stood out in the pouring rain and caught 3 fish, and this is one of the 3 fish, and I'm sharing it with you. So get used to it. If you're thinking about eating with someone who is out there catching fish, listen to their stories. And also, if you're just a foodie and you like eating and you have no sport fishing experience, try to team up with someone who fishes but doesn't necessarily like cooking. You can make a great friendship. They teach you how to fish, you teach them how to cook. Not everyone who goes out and fishes knows how to cook well, and not everyone who cooks well knows how to fish. So just get out there and try new things and try to be creative. So I encourage you all to get out and try, buy your fishing license and try to get out and do some fishing. You can fill your freezer up with just some basic knowledge here in Alaska. If you're a non-resident and you're coming up, get a sport fishing license, go on a charter fishing trip. You can bring coolers home on your airplane full of fresh Alaska seafood, and it will pay for itself pretty quickly. Get out, go fishing, give it a try, and then you can plague all of your dinner guests for the rest of time with your fishing stories or hunting stories or whatever stories. Okay, so before we truly dive into these recipes, I'll just state, as I did earlier, I have a specific cooking style. You'll notice some similar ingredients that I use a lot. So why don't you share some of your favorite recipes in the comments? If you found a few gems online, share them with everybody here. This forum is meant to be a spot where we can share some really cool ideas on what to cook with fish and shellfish so that we can all try new things. If you don't like what I'm mentioning, sorry. There's some great recipes online. You just have to look through a 30-minute, 50-paragraph story about a nice crisp fall day, and then you might find some ingredients somewhere down the bottom. We all have to deal with that, so good luck. So I'll start with breakfast. Yes, fish can be a good breakfast, and shellfish. So breakfasts are a great opportunity for using smoked or canned salmon that is in your freezer. Some of our go-to breakfasts are salmon hash, fried trout with eggs, which is a favorite for camping. Bagel with smoked salmon cream cheese, super easy and delicious. A bagel with salmon gravlax, also relatively simple. Rockfish potato cakes, these can be eaten really for any meal. They're just good with anything. And then crab Benedict, if you have crab and you like eggs Benedict, you should probably make it. Let us know how it goes in the comments. Okay, so salmon hash, this is something that we make, and it's a pretty popular crowd favorite here when we cook, and it's so easy. Saute some softened potatoes. I pre-soften mine in the microwave because potatoes take forever to cook. in a frying pan, in my opinion. And when I'm cooking this stuff, I'm getting hungry and I don't want to wait. And then I have half cooked potatoes. So soften them first if you're like me. Get the onions until they're translucent. Add some garlic powder, paprika, and then toss in your canned smoked salmon. You can also, this is a great use for leftovers. If you made some really good salmon on the grill the night before and you're like, oh, I don't really want to eat this again, throw it in hash the next morning and it'll be great. So throw your salmon in, throw your eggs in, throw your cheese in, done. Salt and pepper, easy breakfast, delicious, something to give a try to for sure. Fried trout with eggs is another really good one. You can fillet your trout and skin it if you want to, or you can just leave it whole and gut it like in this photo. You can put breading on it if you want, but basically you're just gonna cook this over a campfire with some eggs and it makes for a great breakfast. So another really simple fish breakfast. Tasty bagel accessories. So if you want to impress someone and make a super easy breakfast that looks really fancy, make a little bagel bar with your salmon. So salmon cream cheese, super easy. Smoked salmon, canned or just smoked. Mix it with cream cheese, salt, and pepper. I put garlic and onion powder in mine. You'll notice I put garlic and onion powder in everything. That's just my style. You could put some jalapenos in if you want it to be a little spicier. Salmon lox or grab lox. I'm not going to cover how to do this here, but since you're on our Fish and Game YouTube channel, you can find a video that I made on smoking, canning, and pickling fish. And I'll talk all about how to make salmon, lox, and grab lox in there. I'll talk about the next thing, how to make cold smoked salmon, how to make hot smoked salmon. And then I also did a video on how to can salmon. So if you watch this and all of those, you can make an awesome bagel bar. And even if you don't, you probably could anyways. So there's your bagel ideas. Rockfish potato pancakes. Okay, another really easy one. If you have leftover rockfish from the night before, or you can just pre-cook this, bake it in the oven quick, or some people boil it too for potato cakes, whatever you want. So again, if you have leftover mashed potatoes and leftover rockfish, those are two really random things to have leftover at the same time, but you might. If not, just soften your potatoes and use your leftover rockfish, mash it together with some green onions, some breadcrumbs, and an egg, and then make them into patties and fry them up on the stove. These are really good with ketchup and an egg for breakfast. Treat them as you would any potato pancake that you would make, or you can serve them as a dinner or an appetizer with tartar sauce or cocktail sauce, or they would probably be good. They're not bland, they're tasty, but they could work with a lot of different sauces. So definitely encourage you to try these out if you have leftover rockfish in your fridge. Oh, hot sauce would be good on these too. Really anything, they're good as is. Okay, so we'll talk about deep frying next. Yes, it's bad for you. Doesn't matter, it's so good. We love deep fried anything. So to make deep fried fish, my go-to batter is just the bag mix of tempura with a lighter beer, a golden, a lager. PBR works really well for us. We use that a lot. I've used some golden ales that some people swear by, make sure to let the beer go flat first. We do it both ways, still tastes fine to us. We're not picky. You want a batter consistency that is thick enough to coat the fish, but not so thick that it's like a clumpy batter. So like a pancake batter almost, maybe a little bit thicker. That was the best consistency I could come up with. If you don't like tempura mix or beer, you can make your own beer batter. There's about 1 billion recipes online, so just look up a bunch. There's also some really good bag mixes you can just buy from the grocery store. So either way. So when you're deep frying fish, first, what tastes good? All fish and shellfish taste good deep fried. Although I haven't deep fried crab, I don't think you should either, unless you really are looking for a way to disguise crab, but I've done everything else and it's delicious. If you have a fish skeptic that is not sure, an easy win over is deep fried halibut. if they don't like that, they're not gonna like fish, so just give up. My favorite Alaska sport caught things to deep fry: halibut, razor clams, salmon is really good, pike is really good, shrimp. We like our onions, we like our mushrooms. If you have the batter and you're going to be heating up the oil, you might as well use all the batter and deep fry whatever you want. So your frying temperature is really important. You need to heat your oil, which we use canola usually, to 365 degrees before you add your fish to it. That's to prevent you from getting like a soggy, oilier fish. You want that oil to be hot. So put your thermometer in, make sure you're checking it. And as you're adding fish, remember that fish is cooler than the oil. So check your temperature. You don't want to add so much that it drops the temperature of the oil and then your fish gets soggy. So just be mindful of that. Keep checking it as you're going, and you'll know when the fish is done. It'll get nice and golden brown, and then you can just take it out. Some other tips for deep frying: when you're done, put your fish in a basket with a paper towel and shake it around to soak up any excess oil. This is when I add salt if I'm going to. You can get fancy. Once you batter your fish, you can roll it in things before frying. So this photo is of coconut salmon that I just put in my tempura batter, and then I rolled it in coconuts or shredded coconut. It's delicious. A lot of people have been getting fancy with crushing up chips and frying things. Try new things. Give it a shot. Sauces that go good with deep frying. Homemade cocktail sauce is so easy to make. If you go to the grocery store, you will find this horrific, ugly looking thing that is a horseradish root. I'm going to warn you, peel the horseradish root. You're going to cry. It's like cutting 10 onions at once. It is strong. If you are having trouble smelling because you have a head cold, work with horseradish root. You might get your smell back. Then you peel your horseradish root, throw it in a food processor. It's really a firm root vegetable, so make sure your food processor is like tough. Shred it all up and then mix in a little bit of vinegar with it and put it in your fridge like that. It lasts for a long, I have horseradish in my fridge. I don't even remember when I did it, maybe like June, and it's still good. So once you have that, all you have to do to make cocktail sauce is scoop out of your jar of horseradish and add some ketchup. Really easy. Tartar sauce, there are so many different renditions of homemade tartar sauce, but a lot of them have mayo, relish, mustard, dill, salt, and pepper. Some have Greek yogurt, some also have horseradish. There's a lot of different renditions, so just give it a try. Okay, pan frying. If you're going to pan fry fish, it's similar to deep frying. You want your oil to be nice and hot, and that's going to give you that crispy edge on your fish, that nice firm edge. If I'm using breading, I'll just toss in a piece of my breading to see if the oil is hot enough, if it's really bubbling at the breading. And I do the same thing with deep frying. I don't know if you noticed in the video, I like plopped in just a chunk of batter and saw if it was actively cooking that. So I'll just throw that in. Another test is the water test. You can splash water on it, but I just throw in a piece of breading, the sacrificial breading chunk. So on my stove, this crispy edge is medium-high heat. The next, you just put a shallow layer of oil in the pan. Butter, olive oil, canola oil, bacon grease is really nice to use. Any of those things. When you see the cook move halfway up the fish, what I mean by that is you're looking for not that translucent color. You're looking for that lighter tone of fish. And you'll know because if you go to flip it, it'll feel firm. My favorite species to pan fry, all of them, they're all good, but stocked fish are really good. Trout, I bread them with Ritz crackers and then just fry them in butter. Delicious. Rockfish shrimp. You can really pan fry a lot of sport caught species and they're all good. Pies. Have you ever thought to make a fish pie? Well, if you haven't, here you go. Here's your incentive. It's awesome. Salmon pot pie is a favorite in this house. How do you make it really easy for yourself? Make a salmon chowder, eat that for dinner when you're tired of having soup, thicken it up, put it in a pie. Easy. Another way, follow a recipe for chicken pot pie. and replace the chicken with fish. Very, very delicious if you haven't tried it. One of my favorites is these salmon mini pies. I make an herb butter. And by the way, I was telling you to cook with friends or cook with random people. This is totally a stolen recipe. My friend Courtney cooked this for me, and I was like, yeah, I'm eating that forever. So that's how I got this one. So cook with friends, have a cooking night where it's like, all right, everybody come over and bring your favorite salmon dish and then share your recipes, or halibut or shrimp or whatever. That'll lead to some of your best recipes. And this is only one of my stolen. I have a lot of stolen recipes in here. So thank you, friends, for cooking for me. So anyways, make an herb butter, just fresh dill and basil and lemon zest, stone ground mustard. You have your little pie circle. You put the mustard on one piece of the salmon, the butter on the other side, flip it over itself, and then you make it into these cute little hand pies, and they are so good. Another thing, I would think this would be awesome with halibut or rockfish, to make like a pesto or a feta cheese with tomato and spinach. I might have to make that sometime soon because it sounds really good. So get creative, try it with other things. Soups, hopefully by now everybody knows that fish is great and shellfish is great in soup. Chowders, seafood chowder, salmon chowder, clam chowder, all awesome. Bisques, seafood ciapino. If you haven't tried that, it's a more of a red sauce soup, and it's really good, and it uses fish and shellfish. Some other random soups that I make: ginger, turmeric, salmon, sweet potato soup. Sounds weird. It was just like my fridge trash from one day that I was like, I need to use all of this stuff, and it turned out really good. Alaskan split pea soup, another stolen recipe. Make your favorite split pea soup and replace ham with smoked salmon. And then smoked salmon and bean soup, similar to the split pea. So easy salmon chowder. Saute up some carrots, onions, celery in a pan with butter. Get those going. Once they're done, you can add in, if you want a thicker soup, the best way to do that is add a little bit more butter and then add some flour to it. That's how it'll naturally thicken, better than trying to do it at the end. So you can see I'll add my soup stock next, and then I just let it simmer. Now I made salmon stock, but you can just add water, or, because your fish that you do eventually add to it is going to add flavor. Add a few seasonings. I put like sriracha, Worcestershire, Old Bay in a lot of my fish meals. Once that cooks down a little bit, add the fish. And then I add the half and half. You can use heavy whipping cream, whatever you want. Last, let that simmer for a minute or two. Don't let it come to a rolling boil. Let it simmer a little bit, and then that's good. So chowders are pretty easy. Ginger, turmeric, salmon soup. This is a really good one during like cold and flu season. If people in your household aren't feeling that great, you want to just pack them with nutrients. Salmon, carrots, onions, celery, cabbage, garlic, sweet potatoes, fish stock. And in other terms on this YouTube channel, you can find a video that I made on how to make your own fish broth. So make that, but you can use any other stock that you have, or none at all. It just adds flavor. But if you have all of your vegetables sauteing and then you're cooking it, you really don't need to add a stock. It'll just be more flavorful. And then I just add a little bit of ground ginger, turmeric, and salt and pepper. Makes a really good soup. The sweet potato is soft and fast, so add those near the end. Alaskan split pea soup, your typical split pea soup, but toss in smoked salmon or smoked clams if you want, smoked halibut, any smoked fish or shellfish in place of ham. I am telling you, I had this. I could not tell that it was not ham. Try it yourself and let me know in the comments if my taste buds are just swayed, because to me, it tastes exactly the same. Okay, well, next cover some other ideas of what to do: burgers, cakes, and sandwiches. I could not come up with a good difference between a burger and a cake. I think there's so much overlap in the seafood world, but basically burgers are meant to eat on bread, I guess, and cakes are meant to eat with some kind of sauce. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I have a fisheries degree, not culinary. So that's what it is. A classic salmon burger: you get your fillet of salmon, pluck any of the bones out, take the skin off, cut it up a little bit, and then you can throw it in a food processor and just give it a couple pulses And then add in some Greek yogurt, capers, Dijon mustard, dill, salt, and pepper. Put them into patties and fry them up as burgers. This is a recipe from Ryan Reagan. He also works for the department and does some of these videos. So if you've seen some of mine, you've probably seen some of his, and this was a really good burger. I got to eat one. So another thing is, if you're doing a lot of salmon fishing, no matter how good you are at filleting salmon, if you have the carcass and you look at it after, bring a trusty spoon with you, because I guarantee you, even if you're the best salmon filleter on the planet, you will be able to scrape some meat off of that carcass. Bring a separate bag with you and keep your spoon meat in it. Spoon meat is awesome to then throw into burgers, hash, chowders, etc. It's just little pieces and it's perfect for all of this. So I encourage you to try that next time you're out fishing. So here's a burger, and here's the burger, the boop. All of us, we made a few different salmon burger videos, and all of us gave it a little head pat. So I don't know if that's a thing or not, but apparently we all do it. Spicy salmon burger, this is my favorite. I will use cooked salmon if I have leftovers, mix it with breadcrumbs, eggs, sriracha, Worcestershire. Are you seeing a trend here with me, my taste buds? I also throw in dill, lemon juice, a little bit of brown sugar, Old Bay garlic powder, onion flakes, salt and pepper to taste. And then these, same thing, just make them into patties, fry them up in olive oil. And then I serve this on focaccia bread with roasted red onion, red pepper, and sweet potatoes with garlic aioli and spinach. And it's really good. You should try it. You can make a lot of different cakes with your seafood. Crab cakes are awesome. Breadcrumbs, egg, mustard. You can really put anything in a cake. Just make it so that it smells good to you. If it smells good to you, it probably tastes good to you. Some of them are, I put sriracha in all my cakes because I like a kick, but basically the basics of a cake is egg and breadcrumbs, and then whatever seasoning, or if you want to put green onions, whatever you want to put in it. Clam cakes are really good. You can use canned clams, flour, milk, and butter. Look up New England clam cakes or clam fritters, and you'll find a bunch of recipes. Salmon and rockfish, again, so many options for different cakes. You can make potato-based cakes like these rockfish cakes. Salmon sweet potato cakes are really good. You can make those. You can use rice instead of breadcrumbs. Sky's the limit. Other thing, if you're a mushroom hunter, we do it all. We forage and look for mushrooms. Lion's mane mushroom make really good cakes as well. So if you happen to be a mushroom person, that's another good thing to make a cake with. That has a similar texture to a crab cake. And finally, sandwiches. There's so many different sandwiches that you can make with fish. Really popular here in Alaska that you'll see on a lot of menus is a halibut BLT. Super simple. Throw a piece of halibut in a frying pan, salt, pepper, garlic powder. And then what we put on top of our halibut BLTs when they're done is a plop of pepper jelly. Fireweed jelly is also really popular. If you think that sounds weird, try it. It's really good. So plop of pepper jelly on the halibut with tomato and lettuce. This halibut BLT, oh, and bacon, obviously. This halibut BLT takes maybe 10 or 15 minutes to make for dinner. Fried fish sandwiches, what's not to love? It all tastes good. You can also do a lot with canned fish. So if you can a lot of salmon, a really common cold canned fish sandwich, we just dump in salmon with some mayo or Greek yogurt with celery. We'll do a different rendition with some relish, mustard, and pickled jalapenos. Anything that you would do with canned tuna, you can do with canned salmon or canned pike or canned halibut or rockfish. So anything that you would do with tuna, just try it with salmon or any of the other species. Pastas, I'm a sucker for any kind of seafood pasta. So I'll just talk about a few of the sauces that you can put because it's all good. Alfredo sauce, this is what I make in this video. I do like a halibut and mushroom Alfredo. I'll also do like a shrimp and pea Alfredo. We love Alfredo here. So it's just garlic butter, half and half, and Parmesan cheese. Super simple to make. And white wine sauces are really common for seafood. Try garlic shallots, white wine, lemon juice, fish stock. Some people put in tarragon and fresh basil. There's so many different recipes. Tomatoes sauce is also great on seafood. So obviously a simple tomato sauce. Pesto, another favorite, halibut and pesto are a really great combo, which is simply garlic, basil, olive oil, pine nuts. Some people put kale in it, others don't. Others use walnuts instead of pine nuts, but you get the gist. And then macaroni and cheese, because I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you about crab mac and cheese and smoked salmon mac and cheese, because they should be in your life. Just find a good mac and cheese recipe online, use the sauce, or use your favorite mac and cheese recipe and toss some smoked salmon or crab in it. Pizzas, should you put fish on pizza? Yep, you should. And flatbreads. So in this video, I'm making a halibut and pesto flatbread, basically just rubbing some pesto on the dough. I put raw halibut pieces, caramelized onion, and some mozzarella cheese. And then I just bake that in the oven for a little bit. And when it's done, I dress it with arugula and balsamic glaze. And that's usually a crowd pleaser here. Other ideas, my previous supervisor here at Fish and Game always talked about his halibut and feta pizza, which sounds really good. You could do like a Thai shrimp pizza, buffalo halibut pizza. If you like a certain pizza, why not try it with fish? So here's another pizza that I love, which is barbecue smoked salmon. Another stolen recipe. Thank you, Andy and Tessa, for this one, because we would have never thought of this ourselves. We had dinner with our friends and now we eat this like once a week. Barbecue sauce, some caramelized onions, garlic, peppers, pepperoncinis, and then if you have some smoked salmon from the summer, just throw that on there. And then we put some shredded carrots on and some Parmesan or some mozzarella cheese and throw it in the oven, and it's awesome. So, and I'll tell you all, like, in terms of favorite things to eat, salmon is not up there for me. I don't love salmon. I eat it because I can catch it and I like fishing for it and it's plentiful here and it's good for me. So I try to eat it, but I will go through my freezer and usually pick every other thing before salmon to eat. But the smoked salmon pizza recipe, the salmon pies recipe, the salmon burgers, I just have to find a way that I like salmon. And this is a really good way to get me to eat it. So if you're like me and you're just not a huge salmon fan, this might be a really good thing to try if you like pizza. Bakes. A lot of people bake fish. This is like one of the most common things people do with fish is just throw it in the oven with some seasonings on it, which is great. But like I said, if you have someone who's a pickier eater that doesn't love fish, you might have to get a little bit more creative than a bake. But bakes, you need to be careful about overcooking your fish. So to avoid overcooking, it's recommended to only bake to 125 degrees and let the fish rest. Here's what I do. I'll put it in, fish cooks relatively quickly. And I can't just say like, bake it at 400 degrees for 10 minutes because your fish is different thicknesses. A thinner fish is going to cook a lot faster than a thicker fish. So I'm not going to set you up for failure and tell you a time. My go-to is to just check often. I'll put a piece of fish in, and if it's a thinner piece of fish and it's in at 400 degrees, I'll check it after like 5 minutes probably. And I'll do a fork test. So I take a fork, I stick the fork in the fish, I see if it pulls apart. If it doesn't pull apart, it's not done yet. If it does pull apart and it's just glistening, or if you can just barely see a little bit of rawness left, but not much, it's like barely noticeable, that's when I take it out of the oven. So that's how I tell. You can go slow and low. You can go fast and high heat, whatever you want, just check it often. If you're broiling a piece of fish on like a low broil in your oven, you need to be checking that like after 3 minutes based on the thickness of your fish. I just broiled some king salmon that was like this thick the other night and it was done in 8 minutes. So every oven's a little bit different. Just check it often and you'll be good. If you're trying to make a fancy meal and you don't want your fork shoved to show, just throw a chunk of lemon on top of it and call it good. I'm about making food that tastes good and is cooked right versus it looking like it came from a 5-star restaurant. So that's just my method. But remember, when you take the fish out of the oven, it will continue cooking slightly. So if you take it out when there's just a little bit of rawness left, that's okay. Just let it sit for a couple of minutes and it'll be fine. Some of my favorite bakes: stone ground mustard with dill, basil, salt, and pepper on salmon. Another really good one is brown sugar, paprika, and lime zest. One I made the other night that was really good was salmon with coconut aminos, toasted sesame oil, a little bit of maple syrup, and hot chili sauce. That was good. Rockfish, halibut, and lingcod, a really simple, delicious one, is just tartar sauce with shredded Parmesan cheese on top. And then you finish it at broil just for a minute, just to let that cheese firm up and get nice and brown. So that's really good. Common one that I used to cook a lot when I lived back in New England with cod or pollock. I would melt butter and mix it with lemon juice and cracker crumbs, and then put a little bit of milk in the dish, put the fish in, put the coating on top. Delicious. Halibut with bruschetta topping is also a favorite. We roll halibut in shredded Parmesan cheese and Italian breadcrumbs, and then we top it with bruschetta topping when it's done, and that's really good. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Just try new things. If there's a seasoning you like on chicken, try it on fish in the oven. So finally, I'm almost done talking to you about all the different things. Here's some other creative things that I think you should try. Grilling. I didn't go through a lot of different grilling recipes. You can grill any fish or shellfish. There's a million different ways to do it. Obviously, it's awesome in the summer. So just try a few different. If you really like a baked piece of fish a certain way, with certain seasonings, try it on the grill like that. Here's a cool one to try that if you're having company and you want to kind of catch them off guard and give them a real Alaskan treat, is salmon collars on the grill, or halibut collars. We've done this with halibut too. Marinate them in rice vinegar, coconut aminos, or soy sauce. Toasted sesame oil, some sesame seeds, salt and pepper. Marinate those for an hour or two and then throw them on the grill. They're delicious. Try it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Raw options. Here's the thing with raw options. You can do it 100%, but previously freeze your fish for at least 72 hours if it's going to be at -4 degrees. So when you put it in your freezer and it's not yet frozen, that doesn't count. So I usually give my fish a week to freeze. Some fish carry parasites. The freezing kills those parasites. Then you can eat it raw. So good raw options. Hopefully you're still considering raw fish because it really is good. Just freeze it first. Sushi, salmon sushi is delicious. We love salmon sushi here. Poke, really good. Halibut ceviche, really good. So just do some experimenting and try. Another really good dish that I didn't talk about is paella. Look up some paella recipes. It's great if you have fresh caught shellfish. Ramen or pho, however it's pronounced. Again, fisheries biologist here. Spice it up, add some fresh fish to it. You can make a really good ramen. Tacos, nothing else needs to be said. Fish tacos, amazing. So there are also, I mentioned earlier, pad thai, seafood pad thai. I'm going to record this and then I'm going to go in the comments and list 50 other recipes that I didn't remember to tell you. So basically though, the whole point of this is to tell you to get creative with your seafood. There are hundreds of awesome ways to cook Alaska's fish and shellfish that I haven't even scratched the surface of in here. Oh, gumbos, you can do that. You can do jambalayas. See, I'm just going to keep rattling things off. So the biggest thing I can tell you is try new things, get creative. Move away from the same recipe week after week, the same baked salmon with lemon and brown sugar in the oven that you cook every day. Try something different. And with that, I'm going to tell you that we're going to help you get creative. So after you watch this video, we're going to launch the first of many of our short cooking video series. So what it is, it's going to be a 1-minute recipe, and we're going to post a video. It'll show what it is, all of the ingredients, and then us preparing it quickly. and you'll be able to see the whole process from start to finish in a minute. And we'll be posting one of those a week starting in December of 2021 and hopefully going through 2022. So if you have a recipe that you want us to try to make a video of, post it in the comments or reach out to me personally. So we hope that you'll enjoy those videos. Let us know what you think, and we hope to see you there. And finally, if you have a foodie friend who loves eating and hasn't been out fishing, challenge yourself to take them out and give it a try. It's a holiday season right now while I'm recording this. So I'm like, oh, how cool would it be? I have a good friend who doesn't fish, but she loves cooking. So maybe for Christmas, I'm going to buy her sport fishing license. And maybe for Christmas, she can buy me a cooking tool and we can go fishing together. And then we can meet up and make a meal together. And she can learn from me and I can learn from her. This video is my best friend since childhood. She came up from Massachusetts and we took her to Seward to catch some sockeye, and she just had an absolute blast. Not an experienced angler at all. She's done a little bit of fishing, so not a pure novice, but Alaska is different fishing. So it was a learning curve, but you can just see how happy she was when she caught that fish, and she got to bring a whole cooler of salmon home to share with her family after coming up here. Here's another video. This is my mom and my sister on the Kenai River. And then this is my friend Maura, who also hadn't done a lot of fishing. And this is her with a burbot. And I haven't talked a lot about burbot or lake trout or lake fish. I've really been focusing on ocean fish, halibut and salmon and rockfish, but anything that you could do with a rockfish, you can do with a burbot, a lake trout, whitefish, any of those. So don't just think, oh my gosh, I have to ocean fish for this. No, try some of those recipes with burbot, with trout, any fish that you would catch in a lake. You can try many of the recipes that I listed with. So this is ice fishing with a burbot. Hopefully some of you will get out this winter and try catching burbot. They're called poor man's lobster for a reason. So burbot lobster roll would be a really good one to give a try to. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Again, I encourage you to post your favorite fish recipes in the comments, like and share this with your friends if you think there's a recipe that they would like, and stay tuned on our YouTube channel because we'll be sending out a video a week of some different ideas of fish and shellfish meals that you can give a try to at home. Thanks so much.